Yeah, so let's get started with talking about how you got to where you are. How did you start in the film industry?
Hmm. So I started making amateur films when I was about 15, borrowing my granddad's camcorder, which was a analog 8mm videotape camera.
Hmm.
And I just started making films with my school friends, in the backyard, making props out of cardboard boxes and Lego and things. And yeah, probably over about 3 or 4 years, made a lot of amateur films. And then when I was just starting my first full-time job, just a administrative office job, I saw a film course locally advertised and a short course. So I did that and got to know some of the people at the company that ran the course, which was also a production company. Showed them some of my amateur stuff, and they must have seen some potential there because they started hiring me. And I was living in a very small town at the time, quite a small pool of freelancers, and I was able to move up quite quickly from a runner through a camera assistant to camera operator. And there was this one job where the director said, "Oh, let's set this one at night. I know we've got some lights. I don't really know how to use them, but let's just have a play around and see what they do." And that was the start of my journey towards teaching myself to light, which is an ongoing journey.
Being on set, or that class or course that you're talking about,
Yeah.
was it just you experimenting over time, or were there other places like online or courses or things that kind of helped along the way?
Mm. Well, the internet was in its very early days at that time. It was still the broadband days. So there wasn't much useful stuff online. DVDs were just starting to become popular.
Hmm.
And I watched a lot of DVD extras, which I definitely learned stuff from. I used to buy camcorder magazines. I remember there was an offer on one of them. This would have been in the kind of mid to late 90s. There was an offer to get a discounted set of like 3 VHS tapes that were like how to make professional videos or something, they
Hmm.
were called. And I remember learning quite a bit of stuff from those. There was a whole section on 3-point lighting, things like that. Um, but a lot of it was self-teaching. It was just experimenting. I did a lot of corporate videos, training videos for banks and things in the early part of my career. And every time I would have to shoot an interview, I would just try putting the lights in a different place to see what effect that would have on the face. It's actually, lighting interviews is a great way to sort of experiment with lighting human faces and see what works and what works for different kinds of faces and what doesn't.
Right. That's awesome. And I mean, was there a point in your career where you really started to like what you were, doing and what you were seeing? Like, was there a moment you're just like, okay, after 4 or 5 years, I started, doing this one project, and I was like, oh, it doesn't look half bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think I did a lot of stuff that was shot at night. I did in the first few years of my career, I was lucky enough to get on a couple of micro budget features that had a fair bit of night shooting, which was really creative. I didn't used to like natural light at all. I used to see it as my enemy, and I loved to have this blank canvas of nighttime so I could put the lights anywhere I wanted. So I did a couple of things. There was a feature called Beyond Recognition in about 2002, 2003, which I was quite proud of. But I remember I dabbled with directing a bit as well until I kind of decided that cinematography was what I really wanted to do. And I directed a short film in about 2008 and hired a DP on that called Ollie Downey, who was just fantastic. And I learned so much from watching him light that set, the way he kind of peppered the set with pools of light and hid lamps behind things, and in crevices in the set. And yeah, what he did was really creative, and that definitely raised my game a lot watching him work.
Right. Awesome. Did you have any other, teachers or mentors along the way in your journey to where you are now?
Hmm. Yeah, there was a DP called Des Seal who was one of the people running that very first short film course I did. And he gave me a lot of great advice. And one piece of advice was, as at the time I was in my gap year, and I had always been planning to go to university and study film production and something like that. And he said, well, in this industry, no one really cares about a degree; they just care about your previous movie credits.
Right.
So just get out there and be a runner and carry people's bags and make coffee and things, and that's the way to get started. I think deep down, I kind of didn't really want to go to university anyway. I think I'd kind of had enough of full-time education by that point. And that advice really chimed with me, and I took it, and it worked out very well for me.
Nice. Awesome. So, I mean, obviously you've been doing this for a while and you have the credits under your belt. Um, so like as far as the project that you're currently working on, can you talk a
Mm.
little bit about how that got started, and then we'll kind of explore other topics. But I
Sure.
kind of want to let you kind of take the reins on introducing the project.
Okay. The project is called Ren, the Girl with the Mark, and it's a
Hmm.
short form fantasy adventure series directed by Kate Madison. Some people may know Kate as the person who made Born of Hope, which is an incredibly successful Lord of the Rings fan film. It's had like 57 million views or something ridiculous. Um, and I helped out as a camera op on that many years ago, which is how I got to know her. And she hired me as the DP on the first season of Ren, which is an original fantasy series. And at the end of the shoot, it was this amazing experience. It was a very low budget, and it went over schedule. But we could see we were producing fantastic stuff. The costume and production design departments were just amazing. The detail and the authenticity they put into things, and they had so many volunteers and so much goodwill. Most of that first season was actually shot on an outdoor set of a medieval village, which these volunteers built in a parking lot in a disused factory.
Oh wow.
And then they dressed it all and painted it and aged it, and then we had all these volunteers come and be extras, and all the costumes, which some of them were from Born of Hope and some were hired, but a lot of them were made from scratch. So it was really just a privilege every day as a director of photography to show up on this set and point your lens at something that just looked fabulous before you even started lighting it or framing it. And when that shoot ended, we would all bonded and become this kind of big family, because a lot of us were staying at the factory that we were using as a studio as well. So it was like this kind of big student house at times.
Right.
And I don't think any of us wanted it to end. And so I ended up sticking around and helping out a lot with post-production. I edited a lot of the behind-the-scenes material. I did a few of the visual effects and kind of post-production supervised that first season. And then since then, a few years have gone by, and kind of life happens, and people go their separate ways and things. But the show has just gone from strength to strength on YouTube. It's now at something like, I think it's getting towards 9 million total YouTube views now.
Hmm.
And we hit 100,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel recently, and the response to it has been incredible. And a while ago, Kate and I sat down and said, well, look, the time has come. We need to continue the story and make more of this now. The audience is there. Let's do it. So right now we are running a Kickstarter campaign to fund the second season. The first season was crowdfunded as well, and it's kind of we try to involve people as much as possible. Involve people as volunteers, as extras. We show people all this behind the scenes material and try to be really transparent about what we're doing. And we also look to the community to kind of fund the project as well. There's no studios, no executives to cancel it. So, if people want to support it and see more episodes, they can.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, and I'll definitely include the link to the Kickstarter in the show notes. I was looking at some of the behind the scenes and just kind of seeing what was being done. And let's talk a little bit about just the technical aspects of it. I think I saw that you were shooting with a Blackmagic camera.
That's right.
For a portion of it, or all of it,
Yes.
maybe.
Yeah. So let's see. Season 1 was shot back at the end of 2014, and at the time I owned a Blackmagic Cinema camera 4K, which I think was only the second or third model of camera that Blackmagic Design ever put out.
Right.
It was still quite early days for them. And then we had two other camera ops who had the Cinema camera, the original model, who were doing kind of B and C camera stuff. So it was all shot on Blackmagics, and quite a mixed bag of lenses, all stills lenses. We had some legacy Pentax glass from the 70s, which was really nice, and then some modern kind of Sigma and Samyang stuff. I'd love it to have been more consistent than that in terms of look, but we worked with what we had.
Right.
There wasn't really a rental budget. We just kind of borrowed stuff and made do with what we had.
Right.
I think it looks pretty good in the end.
No, it definitely does. Did you use any type of filtration over any of the lenses, or was it all just kind of clean?
It was all clean, just variable ND for exterior scenes. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. And as far as like the I guess the size of your crew, I know, you're working on limited time, limited resources. Did you have like a consistent, 5, people, or, like how big or small was your crew?
Well, it definitely ebbed and flowed. We had some days where maybe we just had 1 or 2 principal actors on set, and there was me and a gaffer and a sound cordist and maybe 1 production assistant and the director, and that was pretty much it. But then we had other days where we had other days where there were several people in costume and makeup, and maybe 3 camera operators and a few different assistants, a couple of people doing lighting. So it might have grown to, I don't know, at most a crew of 20 people. This total crew, obviously not just the camera department, but some days we had loads of extras on set as well. But it really changed on a daily basis. There were several mornings where I would be setting up lights myself. I'd open up the garage doors on the warehouse and wheel out the 2.5K HMI and set it up myself, because there was no one else to do it.
Right. No, definitely. Was there was it something that you were using the resources that you had, and like lights and gear that you owned? Was there a budget that you could rent certain tools?
Yeah, there was a little bit of a budget. I owned a few lights of my own at the time, just mostly open face tungsten. Kate, the director, had bought a couple of cheap LED panels, the ones you get from Hong Kong that didn't have great CRI, but they were useful in a pinch. And we had one of the stills photographers lent us some of his gear as well. But after a few days of shooting on the outdoor set, I said, look, we could really do with hiring an HMI just to try and keep some consistency to the light, because season 1 is all set over a single day. And we were shooting it over multiple days, starting in mid-September and wrapping at some point in November. So the weather was changing quite a bit as we went on. So I thought, at least if we have, I knew we weren't going to be able to afford anything bigger than a 2.5, but at least that's something just to give a little bit of edge and backlight if the sun's gone in. So we hired that for run of show, and then when we moved to the interiors for the week and the night exteriors at the very end, we hired in a package, which was I think we had a 1.2 kHMI as well, a couple of Kina flows, a bit more tungstens and dados, nothing big.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And like as you know, a DP, and as you're ever evolving and just learning and growing, is there certain things that you do that you're just like, okay, I love to, you know, get on set with the light meter, or love to, you know, this is just my style where I have to have the camera, you know, a certain way that's built, or, you know, like, is there anything like that that you're just like, I have this weird kind of quirk that I just all of a sudden starting to notice?
Yeah, you'd probably have to ask my ACs for the true answer to that. I mean, I love I love to have a viewfinder. You know, it really bugs me that so many cameras these days aren't built with viewfinders. You know, I hate having to look at screens, and with my Blackmagic, I used to have a black cloth over my head a lot of the time so I could see the screen in broad daylight. So I love a nicely built, nicely balanced camera rig where I actually put my eye to it and it's comfortable. I love using the Alexas, the full size Alexas, because they're just balanced so nicely on the shoulder. You know, they're heavy, but they're balanced nicely. And as for light meters, yeah, I think at the time we made season 1, I didn't use a meter. But since then I have started, I now use a light meter all the time. I really like to, I feel confident that I can expose without one. And I take film stills and hobby 35mm and 120, and you know, sometimes you have to expose that without having any light readings, which is great practice. But if I can, I like to have as much information about exposure as possible. And often I kind of throw it out the window and just kind of do it based on the monitor anyway. But at least I know, you know, I've got the facts to back me up, I suppose.
Right. Are you using any tools like false color or waveforms or anything like that to help?
False colors I use a lot. Waveforms and histograms, very rarely, usually only if I need to light a green screen or something. But false colors, yeah, is one of the go-to things. I always have that set up as one of the function keys, so I can access that, turn it on and off really quickly.
Awesome. Cool. And like, I guess one of the things as I pull it up, I'm looking at your Instagram, which is awesome. There's a ton of you know, different lighting breakdowns and you know, really cool images of your work. I know in one of the Kickstarter, what do you call them? They're not necessarily
Rewards?
gifts, but they're rewards. There you go. That's the word. You are offering a lighting course, which is very intriguing, and I think that's super cool. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I had been thinking about making a course for a while. Yeah, my Instagram accounts has really taken off over the last year or two. Actually, what happened is when the first season of Ren was released, I made a little series of videos to go with each episode for my own YouTube channel, a little series called Lensing Ren, which we just broke down the cinematography of each episode. And it had these little diagrams where I'd take the shot from the show and shrink it down and then Photoshop all the lamps around it with arrows showing where the lights were. And I started to post those on Instagram, and people really responded to them. So now I post these diagrams every week, every Friday. Yeah, people find them really useful, I think. There's no one else doing anything quite like it. I don't think people put lighting diagrams up occasionally, but I think seeing the diagram and the actual finished image in the same thing is something that people find really interesting. And so the course sort of came out of that, really. It was clear that people sort of wanted to learn more. And I had seen another Kickstarter funded film a few years back where the their DP offered a sort of tutorial as one of the rewards, and I thought that was a great idea. We have a lot of filmmakers following us because we show all the behind the scenes stuff. So just before Christmas, myself and a small crew went out on location here in Cambridgeshire, and we filmed over 2 days what will be a 4-hour course on cinematic lighting. And so it's 1 hour for day exterior, one for day interior, one for night interior, and one for night exterior. And in each module, we actually film a little scene. We had 2 actors and wrote little scenes inspired by Ren. And we just kind of shoot it. And you see me setting up all the lights, setting up the camera, and explaining exactly what I'm doing as I do it, why I'm making those decisions, both creatively and practically. Sometimes I demonstrate different ways you can do things, like in the day interior, I show different ways of shining the light in through the window, whether you go direct or bounce it off part of the set or go through a diffusion. And hopefully it's again, something that you don't see every day is actually getting to watch a director of photography work on a real location with real actors, real equipment. It's not just in a studio demonstrating 3-point lighting. This is how drama lighting actually works.
Right.
So that's one of the rewards at the £300 pledge level, which I think is 390 something US dollars. And you get a bunch of Ren related stuff as well, all the rewards underneath it, like the DVD box set and daily video blogs from the set and things like that.
That's awesome. So I am looking at the Kickstarter. Like I said before, I'll include that in the show notes so people just easily click it. And as of us recording it right now, there's 23-ish days to go. So
yeah,
you know, we'll get this cranked out pretty quick and see, you know, like hopefully it just continue to grow and blossom. And
yeah, I think we've done really good so far. To get a quarter of the way there in the first few days is pretty good going. So we finish on UK time. It's midnight on February the 29th. And so that will be a little earlier in the day on the 29th in the US. And yeah, our target is 100,000 UK pounds, and we have stretch goals to go higher and make multiple episodes. So this the base goal is for 2 episodes, but we would love to make more.
Right. Awesome. I have a few more questions before I let you go, and I know we're getting close to time. So as a cinematographer, like, what inspires you, and like how do you stay inspired?
What inspires me is seeing other great cinematography. You know, there's I have to say I don't go to the movie theater that much these days, but I do watch a lot of long form streaming shows. And for me, the best cinematography out there is in long form streaming shows at the moment. I really connect with some of the work that's been done in things like The Crown on Netflix, Outlander on Stars, you know, the Daredevil Netflix show. There's some really, really beautiful cinematography out there. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Yeah, it's just beautiful, beautiful work being done every week on these shows, which very much inspires me. That would be my dream job, would be to work on a high-end kind of period or fantasy long-form show. You know, I'd love to do something like that. And also art, fine art, you know, I don't really kind of have a fine art background, but it's something I've tried to learn about as my cinematography career has developed. You know, going to art galleries. You know, a few years ago, I kind of fell in love with the work of Turner, you know, his seascapes and landscapes and the way he paints light and the mood of weather. and classic photography as well. Ansel Adams, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Ansel Adams' zone system, is really kind of helped my understanding of exposure. I use it a lot when I'm taking stills, and often think about it in cinematography as well. Yeah, so there's so much
Right.
out there to inspire me.
Awesome. And then one of the last questions I have is, if someone is just starting out, maybe it's a fan of Ren, and
Mm,
they're looking at all the behind the scenes. They've seen the
mm,
show and they're like, man, I really love the way that this looks. I'm
mm,
passionate about filmmaking, but I don't know where to start, how to start. I
mm,
didn't go to film school. Like, what
mm.
what advice would you give that person that wants to kind of jump into filmmaking?
Well, I think having the passion is a fantastic start. I think access to equipment is relatively easy these days. The technology has become so much more accessible than even when I started out. So just start filming stuff, start experimenting, start playing around like I did, try lights in different positions. If you don't have proper lights, then you can go to your DIY store and buy kind of halogen floodlights or LED floodlights, and just try playing around with what you can do with those. You can get some amazing results out of that kind of stuff, as long as don't just shine it straight at people. Use a shower curtain to diffuse it, or bounce it off a bed sheet, or get some tin foil and reflect it, or shape the light. Just experiment. Find YouTube videos that will give you inspiration. Other than the ones on my own channel and the Ren channel, which is Mythica Entertainment, there's good stuff on there, but there's loads of other places out there with lighting tutorials and things. And then just try and connect with people. If you have a lot of areas have some kind of a filmmakers networking group, where people will meet up on a monthly basis or something, and collaborate with each other. If you've got one of those in your area, great, go to it, start meeting people. If you don't, there are groups online. You can find like-minded people and just make stuff, and connect with people. And when you connect with other people who are making stuff, you can get on their sets, and that's how it builds up.
Right. Awesome. And final question is, where can people connect with you? I know we talked a little bit about your Instagram and
Yeah.
Kickstarter, but where can people follow what you're doing and see more of your work?
Yeah. So Instagram is at Neil Oseman, NeilOseman, and I'm under the same name on Twitter and YouTube as well. And if you want to follow Ren, they're Mythica Entertainment on YouTube is the company, and Ren the series on Facebook and Twitter, and Mythica Entertainment on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, Neil, thanks so much for giving some insight into your journey as a cinematographer, into Ren, the project, and good luck on the continued success of that project. And I just thank you so much for sharing some insight with the Capture and Light community.
Thank you.